Hey, what's going on, everybody? It has been quite some time since I recorded a solo episode. And, over the last couple of months, we've passed a couple milestones, and I wanted to just take some time and almost uh, obviously share some gratitude with you guys, but also talk about my journey because over the past actually couple of weeks, the show has grown exponentially. And I wanted to kind of take a second and share my journey a little bit with you, share some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way, and important factors that have really changed the game for me in podcasting, in business, and life in general. And so hopefully, I'm not overly prepared for this, but to be honest, hopefully I can share some wisdom and some fun along the way on this very short solo episode. I always love recording these, and every single time I put out a solo episode, you guys reach out to me through Instagram and wherever else and tell me how much you love it. So maybe I'll start doing it more. As a matter of fact, if you like this episode, give me a shout on Instagram and let me know you enjoyed it, and I will certainly try my best to create more solo content on the podcast for sure, and hopefully again add insight into your life. And I think about the journey over the last 6+ years. That's one of the milestones we passed in the past couple of months. Has been 6 years of podcasting, and so much has changed in my life, in podcasting in general. And when I think about it, it really hit me the other day. I was sitting next to an older gentleman in his 70s or maybe even 80s, and he turned to me and he asked me what I do, and I told him that I had a podcast, and he goes, "I love podcasts." And I realized how funny that was, because 6 years ago, I would tell somebody that I had a podcast and they would go, "What's a podcast?" And now everybody, when I tell them I have a podcast, they roll their eyes and they go, "Oh, you too?" Right. The medium of podcasting has just changed so much and grown so much over the last 6 years. I just love not explaining to people, or not having to explain to people what podcasting is. It's really a really cool thing to see it grow over the last number of years. And as my show has grown, with over 2 million downloads, I think I'm coming up on 2.5 here shortly over the life of the podcast. I feel really, really blessed, because it wasn't always like that. And if I were to take you back 6 years before I launched the show, 6.5 years or so, and it really was the darkest moment of my life. My mom lost a 20-year battle to opioids. And I don't know if everybody knows my story, but essentially I was raised, in a home where I would have been least likely to succeed. I had a 1.7 GPA in high school. My dad, spent some time in jail, and my mom battled opioids and ended up being a 20-year battle until she lost it. Now, it's funny when you look, not funny, but when you look at the statistics that society says you should be based off of your past, they say if your parent is in jail, you have 50% chance of ending up in jail. If your parent's an addict, you have 50% chance of ending up as an addict. And, if you do the math, I'm 100% screwed. And so I've been fortunate enough to be able to surround myself with some great people, starting at a pretty young age, that taught me that I have choices and I can make my own way. And I never knew that I would be the self-development guy. I didn't know I'd host my own self-development event. I didn't know I'd have my own podcast. I didn't know any of that stuff. But at 19 years old, a mentor of mine handed me a book called Who Moved My Cheese? And it changed my life forever. The book, first of all, talks about how things are going to change around you, but that doesn't matter. What matters is how you react to the change. And obviously we've had blips along the way, right? Never the perfect life, and still never the perfect choices that I make, but I try my best to not allow outside circumstances to dictate who I become. And so that was really a profound book for me to read. And the more important part is it introduced me to self-development. It introduced me to this idea that there's all this knowledge out in the world to help guide me, to help direct me. And still to this day, I try and learn something new every single day. As a matter of fact, it's one of my non-negotiables. And that has really made me into the person that I am now. And I'm really, really grateful for that. Now, going back to 6.5 years ago, when my mom passed away, I went into a 3-month bender where I was blackout drunk 6 nights a week. And when I finally came out of that bender and I kind of woke up from it, and I decided that enough was enough, and I decided to sit down and feel that pain and allow myself to grieve, that's when everything changed. That was when I defined my rock bottom moment. And the greatest lesson there is we choose when our rock bottom moment is. We say, okay, enough's enough. And it doesn't mean that bad times aren't going to happen again. It doesn't mean that things aren't going to break our heart, or we're not going to lose our job, or we're not going to lose another family member. But the reality is, we can decide that we're not going to allow those outside circumstances to dictate who we become. So bad things have happened over the course of the last 6 years since she's passed away, but I never allowed it to control me anymore. And I think that was such a defining moment, and something I get to share now when I speak on stages, and when I get to communicate with some of my clients, and so on and so forth. And it really is a true game changer when you take control over the circumstances of your life. And I've been able to share that on this crazy journey in podcasting. One of the questions that I get asked all the time about podcasting in general is, how did you grow your show? How did you grow your business? How did you take this crazy journey and turn it into the life that you want? Because I bought a $60 microphone. I had no idea what I was doing, and I hit record and I put it out in the universe, and along the way learned some tips and tricks, and I went all for it. Right. But I'll share this with you. There's many things that created the success for me. One is consistency. I try my best to show up every single week, and I don't think I've missed a week in years, unless it was a planned. I used to take August off of the show just to, take a breath, but I don't do that anymore. And the reality is, consistency is key in life. Consistency is key in the success of and growth of a podcast, of a business, of a relationship. To consistently show up for yourself every single day or every single week or whatever is necessary, that's going to change the game. That's how you create success. The second thing is hard work. It's not easy, right? It's not easy to build a business. It's not easy to find clients. It's not easy to record these episodes and, edit them and put them out and do all that stuff. And so hard work is a necessity in life, because nothing works unless you do. And the third thing is failures. I think failures are extremely important in your success. And I don't mean that they're necessary. I mean that they're important, because we're all going to have failures. I still have failures, right? During COVID, I tried to launch a business, it failed. Now, obviously, on the other hand, I launched 2 more businesses that are fruitful right now. And the reality is, I learned from these mistakes, and that's when it's key, right? Is that is that failure truly a failure? If you're learning, I'm going to say no. And so I've been able to learn from my failures, and I continue to learn from my failures going forward. But the most important thing that I've learned over the course of the last 6 years is the importance of community, and the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people who are like-minded, people who are driven like you, people who have similar goals as you, people who are as kind as you, and people who hold you accountable. And I think accountability is such an important part with your community, because if you're not being held accountable, then you're not going to do the things you need to do to live the life that you desire. I've never been the person to tell someone what they should be doing or what they should strive to be. As a matter of fact, I say, I never wanted to be that person who people look at and say, I want to be like Justin. As a matter of fact, I feel uncomfortable when people do, and obviously honored, but it's a weird thing for me, because I don't view myself as this perfect person, and I'm far from it. I'm a very imperfect person who has a kind heart and big goals, and wants to make a massive impact in this world and continue to grow the things that he's doing and continue to help others do the same. If you're listening to this right now and you know that you have a big vision and you want to make an impact in the world, go for it. And I want to be there to support you. As a matter of fact, shoot me a message on Instagram and tell me what your big goal is. Tell me what your dream is. And let's find a way to get you there, because when we are living in our purpose, there's nothing more fulfilling than that. There's nothing more fulfilling than waking up every single day and serving what it is you're here to do. And sometimes the journey is trying to figure that out. I think that's a super important part, but truly, I dare you to dream big, because if you told me 10 years ago that I'd be doing what I'm doing and I'd be hosting my own live event here in a month, I'd laugh. I wouldn't think it was possible. But it was those small baby steps that got me to the point to allow me to be the person that I am now, that allowed me to, pour into others the way that I do, and I think that's a testament to just those small incremental wins and those small steps forward every single day. And that's been such a blessing in my life. One of the things I've been talking on lately, and I feel like it's important, and for some odd reason, I want to share it here, even though it doesn't really fit in with some of the other things I just talked about, but, we all have limiting beliefs. We all have that narrative in our head that we aren't enough, that we're not good enough to do something. And the whole, who am I to, do a podcast, or who am I to host a live event, or who am I to write a book, or who am I to build a business, or who am I to be in a loving relationship, or who am I to be healthy and well, and who am I to do all these things, right? And so as I began to really think about my limiting beliefs in my life that I've had, whether it be those things that I just mentioned, right? All those things were my limiting beliefs that I've been able to overcome. I realized that it was not easy, but I came up with a very simple process in order to overcome those limiting beliefs. And if you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen one of my reels where I talked about this. But honestly, the first thing we need to realize is, where do these limiting beliefs come from? Where is this negative self-talk coming from? And when I was doing some research about 2 years ago, when this research began on this idea of limiting beliefs, I realized that limiting beliefs come from 4 different places. And the first one is our childhood. It could have been as simple as you're walking through the mall with your mom, and your mom runs into her friend from college, and they're so excited to see each other. And you, as a 4 or 5-year-old, hide behind your mom's leg, and they go, that's just Justin. He's just shy. Or that's just Mary. She's just shy. You could hold on to that for the remainder of your life unless you let it go. And therefore you walk through your life saying, I'm just shy. I'm an introvert. I can't interact with people. I can't speak on a stage, and you carry that with you. So that's the one thing, childhood. Number 2, society. Society would say to me that you shouldn't be successful. You shouldn't be the person helping others because of where I came from, right? Well, like I shared earlier with my parents, society said that I should have settled for mediocrity. And if I decided that was my limiting belief and I would carry it with me, I don't know where I would be, right? So society says these things, right? Society might say you're a female, so you can't do certain things, or you're a minority, you can't do certain things. Society has placed these limiting beliefs on you in order to hold you back. And it's up to you to overcome them, right? Because we're not going to change society. We can only change how we react to the things people think. The third thing is our own negative self-talk. Right. It could have been something as basic as back in 6th grade, you asked a girl out and she said no. And you look at yourself in the mirror after that every single day and say, oh, you're ugly. Oh, you're fat. Oh, you're not good enough. The girl never told that to you. That was you that decided that was the reasoning behind her saying no. And you then carry that with you. Right. And now all of a sudden you have this negative self-image of yourself. And the fourth thing is a subconscious. A lot of times in life, we go through big traumas. And I talk about this in a past episode with Gabby Bernstein. We go through big traumas, and what happens is we forget that trauma happened. We bury it in a way that protects us. But what it does long-term is it affects our ability to grow. It affects our ability to become who we're meant to be. And so we have to do the work in order to figure out if we have these big traumas. Not everybody has been through these types of things, but a number of us have, a large percentage of us have. And so sometimes that takes some spiritual work to figure it out, whether it's some deep meditations or healings or whatever the case may be, but we have to unearth those things in order to move forward. So the first thing is, let's identify, and those are 4 of the places it comes from. So we have to identify, where does that limiting belief come from? And then it's a very simple, but not easy 3-step process in order to overcome any of them. And the first thing is, we have to get uncomfortable. We have to put ourselves in a situation that literally changes our biochemistry, that changes our energy, that changes who we are, right? If we think that we're shy, then we have to put ourselves in front of people and open ourselves up and prove to ourselves that we're not shy by public speaking or talking to large crowds or being the center of attention in the group of our friends. We have to get uncomfortable and do that. The second thing is, we have to surround ourselves with the right people, right? Going back to this idea that I understood that community is the greatest secret to success for anybody, is we have to make sure that community is supportive of us. That community is, pushing us in the right direction. That community will pick us up when we fall down. Those are the important things, right? And so the second thing is surround yourself with the right people. And then the third step is to take action, because nothing works unless we do, is something that I said earlier as well. And we have to take action to change those things long-term. Right? One time it's not going to change anything, but if we can make a new habit, if we can continue to build layers onto what we're doing, then in that case, we're going to be able to overcome those limiting beliefs. Now, the crazy part is we all have limiting beliefs, right? I have friends who are massively successful, massively famous, some of the top thought leaders in the world. And when you get to know them, you realize that they have limiting beliefs as well. They might not be the same as ours. They've clearly overcome a lot of their own limiting beliefs, but they still have them and they still tackle them. So know that you're not alone. know that you're not the only person who has those doubts, right? I still at certain times have doubts in my mind as I'm building the business that I've built over the last 6 years. But the reality is we have to do those things to get uncomfortable, to surround ourselves with the right people, and then take action. And so my challenge for you is over the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, month, month and a half, commit to finding out who your community is, right? I posted something on Instagram the other day talking about auditing your circle, auditing those people that you spend the most time with, and question whether they are the right fit for you and where you want to go. Not who you are now, not who you were, but who you want to become. And then find a way to get in the right room, to make sure you surround yourself with those right people, right? And one of those great things is going to a live event. Now, I'll shamelessly plug mine, which we have a few tickets left. So you can go to growthnowsummit.com and grab your tickets and join us and find your community there. But it could be any live event. It doesn't have to be mine. It could be any live event in order to build that community for yourself. And that really begins massive changes in our life. When we surround ourselves with the people who are already, 3 steps ahead of us, that's where we want to be. And so we want to make sure that we do that for ourselves. And so although this episode was kind of all over the place, I realized that I've collected so much information over the last 6 years. And I'm so insanely grateful for every single conversation I've had. I get the question all the time, who was your favorite guest? And I can't answer that because they've all meant so much to me. They've all been so important in building who I am now. And continue to be important. And I've become friends with so many of them, and they speak at my events and I speak at their events, and we share communities and we help each other and we push each other. But honestly, like, I'm just really grateful to have the opportunity to be a vehicle for this information, to be the person that has stepped into and said yes to the challenge of being that vehicle. And I encourage you to step into that challenge, to be the vehicle that you want to be, to make the things that you want to make, to become the person that you're destined to become. I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me over the last 6+ years, which is just still mind blowing every time I say it. But thank you guys so much for being you. And I think the important thing is when somebody ever asks me, is there anything else you want to add? Or is there one last message for my audience? And it's the message I want to share with you guys. And that is, you're perfect the way you are right now. You're exactly where you are supposed to be in this very moment. And now it's up to you to become the person that you want to become. So again, thank you. I'm so insanely grateful for you. I hope this solo episode, you learned something. I know I was all over the place, but I hope you learned something. And I look forward to hearing your stories over on Instagram. I look forward to connecting with you there and hearing your big goals and your big audacious dreams, because that's what makes you light up, and you deserve to light up every single day.